Hello, Gary.
Hello, Guy. So this week we got a text from Johnny Marr.
We did, which is in fact on a beach in Turkey.
I wasn't going to say that. I was going to give that bit away. You just said it.
Well, you can't know, but apparently, if Harold Pinter was alive, he'd be livid.
Yes. He's too busy putting up Vote Labour posters. He's alive today. No, he texted correcting us, really. Well, adding, if you like, to the database of why what we were talking about with Jimmy Webb a few weeks ago, the songwriter Jimmy Webb, who wrote Wichita Lineman for Glenn Campbell. We were talking about the fact that there's that diddy giddy 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 in the string arrangement of that song, and who we thought copied it.
That's right. When we thought that that's where David, or probably more likely Mick Ronson, got it for Starman.
Yeah, which on the guitar. Anyway, Johnny then texts us and says he's listening to the Brian Auger. Hang on, he was listening to Brian Auger. Should we quote him? I'm sure he won't mind, will he? Yeah, go on then.
I was listening to the pod on a lounger in Turkey. How great is Brian Auger? Anyway, the Morse code thing in Starman is taken from You Keep Me Hanging On. Either Bowie or Ronson mention it in an interview.
Yeah, so he's talking about. He's also been listening to the Jimmy Webb one as well as the Brian Auger one.
Yeah. So yes, thank you to Johnny from Manchester for that.
And of course he's right. And You Keep Me Hanging On by the Supremes, which was Lamont Dozier Holland song, came out in 1966 and starts with that guitar part. And then so I looked it up and I found, obviously it's the Funk Brothers, but it was played by Robert White.
Right.
On guitar.
Bob White to his friends.
Bob White, I'm sure.
Bobby White.
But
Bobby
I found this little bit on the internet which said the song's signature guitar part is said to have originated from a Morse code-like radio sound effect typically used before a news announcement and heard by Lamont Dozier. Dozier collaborated with Brian and Eddie Holland to integrate the idea into a single. So it did come from that Morse code thing. We were correct.
There you go. Yeah, I wonder if it's actually spelling something out, like news, perhaps, or something like that. Or I don't know. Georgie, my missus, she reckons it's Pearl and Dean, which
is also news, right?
Which is also, but he's da 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 da. But although that's something that Jimmy Webb has used a lot, MacArthur Park has got big Pearl and Dean action in it, hasn't it?
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway,
we digress. We're loving having celebrity fact checkers.
Yeah.
So keep them. Any famous people listening, please correct us. We're here for it. But there is also the point that I reckon it is possible that it was perhaps Wichita Lineman that reminded them about that. But they realised it's actually, certainly back then, in the 70s, I mean, how cool was Glenn Campbell? That it was a much cooler reference point to say you got it from the Supremes.
Yeah, of course. You bumped into Paul Cook, didn't you, this week?
I did bump into Paul Cook. Yeah.
Why is that?
It was at Rose Boyd's book launch.
Oh, God, you're so literary, aren't you?
Is there
ever a book launched without you being at the foot of?
Oh, it was fun. I mean, it's an amazing book. I mean, we've only just started it, but it's fantastic. Great, basically a biography of her father, Lucian Freud.
Yeah.
Amazing. She sat
but it's causing some disruption in the family, I hear. There's not everyone in the family.
But I did think it was quite nice because I was there and there was Paul Cook and there was also Paul Simon. I thought it was quite interesting that the musicians who attended this literary event were Sex Pistols and Clash members.
Mate, we used to go to every event we could possibly get to just to get some canapes and some shots.
That's true.
I mean, were they...
The opening of an envelope.
We used to. Anyway, there is some Sex Pistols news, right?
There is some Sex Pistols news. Yeah, they're doing... Which is great, actually. They're doing a fundraiser to save Bush Hall, aren't they?
Did he tell you that? He
did actually tell me that, yeah.
And it's in there. It's
Two
Steve
nights.
Jones, Glenn Matlock, Paul Cook.
Yeah.
They're doing the whole of Nevermind the Bollocks.
I don't know about that. All I know is the Sex Pistols are playing with Frank Carter.
Frank Carter is really scary bloke, right? He is exactly like Johnny Rotten reborn. He's much younger than the rest of them. I think he's probably about 40. he's a tattoo artist and a singer. Plays in this band called Frank Carson and the Rattlesnakes. You would be frightened. You and I would run if we saw him walking down the street. He's got some serious tattoos and he's got red hair and he looks a bit like Johnny.
Ink. He's got ink, Gal. That's what you say. You say ink. You don't say tattoos. You say ink.
You go and tell him what he's got.
Have you got any ink, Gal?
It's you he wants. I haven't got any ink. I wanted to... I like the idea of being utterly naked. I have considered a line or two from Yeats. I'm not quite sure where to put them.
The Serenity Prayer.
Oh, please. Anyway, today's guest knows how to write a few lyrics, doesn't he? He knows a bit of poetry. Oh my God!
He exudes poetry. It seems it's poetry. He sees poetry everywhere he goes, and it comes to him, and it's in a fantastically everyman sort of way.
I mean, I feel quite humbled talking to him actually, because he is such a literary genius as well as a musical one, and a beautiful voice, and has written some incredibly co-written some incredibly important pieces of music in the 21st century. I think music that people consider sort of great supports for their life, if you like. And have you met him?
I have.
Met him at the closing ceremony?
Not really met him, but there's something I want to bring up with him, which is the one time I've come across him. But I'm going to save this.
Weren't you at the closing ceremony together? Surely.
No, I was not at the closing ceremony.
Oh, wasn't that where you played guitar with Jimmy? Was that? Have I got that wrong? Oh, that was somewhere else, wasn't it?
That was something else. That was the Nestle thing. No, the only sort of Pink Floyd presence at the Olympics was Nick. Played with Ed Sheeran.
Oh, and Richard Jones.
And Richard Jones played bass. I'll let you off, Richard.
He's a mate.
He's a mate, as it's you. That was quite funny, wasn't it? Because they played Wish You Were Here, and all of Ed Sheeran's fans were going, "Wow, what's this great new song?" Which is fair enough. Fair enough.
Only
That's not me being
every
old man.
busker in the world plays it.
It's true.
Oh, we're getting a signal from our producer. Is he here?
He's here. Let's get him on.
Welcome to the Rockonteurs.
Okay, guys, I'm ready.
You know this thing about the 10,000 hours of experience? When we recorded Arnold Lane, we'd done about 50 hours.
I love the fact he's dancing to it naked. Like, it's so hedonistic. It's so liberating. How brilliant.
We knew the moment that the five of us were in a room, like the first three chords, was like, oh, we finally all found each other.
I'm in a band now. It's called Roxy Music.
He started playing that as his main guitar. So it was his main guitar, so I just said, you can have it.
Thank you guys for still being around, still making music, still being into it, and doing this podcast. It's fabulous.
Everyone in the band was completely disengaged from their partners while we made Rumours.
That's a big tune for sure. I actually wrote that originally for Tina Turner.
The Rockonteurs podcast with Gary Kemp and Guy Pratt.
Keep on rocking!
Hello.
Hello.
Lovely to see you.
How are you doing? We're great, man. How are you? We're all the better for seeing you.
I'm just going to turn you up a bit. In fact, let me put my headphones on.
Well, where are you?
I'm in South London. I live in Upper Norwood, top of Streatham Common.
Upper Norwood, with that big long hill going down the...
That's right.
Yeah, I came off my bike there when I was about 10.
Scab knees.
Tell you what, I mean, would the mic on my phone be enough, Ben? Or would you prefer me to try and rig up a Pro Tools thing?
You sound really good.
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay.
Because you've got such a magnificent voice, you see, that's what it is.
I see. It's my residence.
This is going to be tricky with two guys on, right? But this new guy who's just arrived.
Hey, the new guy. What's the new guy?
I want him to read me bedtime stories, but you have read some bedtime stories, haven't you, Guy?
Yeah, I've done a few of those. It's something I've really got into.
For CBeebies?
I should probably write some, given what's happened to music.
You would have been sad because Jack and Nori doesn't exist anymore, does it?
No, it's called the Bedtime Stories, and I did one at Glastonbury when we were there a couple of years ago. A lovely children's book called A Little Bit Brave, which I recommend to anybody with an older than 3-year-old. It's a lovely book.
I think it would be great if you wrote a book like that. Your songs seem to have a lot of nostalgia in them. I mean, Lippy Kids, for example.
Yeah.
That sense of knowing still being attached to your younger self seems to be one of your secrets.
I think it's probably been enhanced by the arrival of our Jack a few years ago, 7 years ago. I mean, apart from anything else, he's the breathing image of me. And he's a similarly sensitive and dreamy, lazy little lad like I was. So it's quite easy to plug back into my childhood, yeah.
Because before that, you see, a lot of your writing was barfly stuff, wasn't it? That's where you know, your friend. It was like my friends. It was almost. I wouldn't say Bukowski-esque because that's too tragic.
Yeah. Well, it's. I guess they say right what you know, don't they, Guy? It's like I've always written about getting older. Strangely, right from the first album, the idea of growing old in love always appealed to me, and then that became about. As the friendships are made around the time I met the band when I was 16, as they've endured, as they have, I write more and more about friendships and drinking. And then the childhood, starting in about 2009, 10 with Lippy Kids. Mm-hmm. Although I suppose a strange thing happened on the first album. Our bass player Pete's mum and dad have got shares in a place in rural France near Le Mans. And when we were 18, we got a load of cash off the Prince's Trust and we doubled it with whatever jobs we were doing. And we all went out there for 3 weeks and we lived as musicians for the first time. And I honestly believe that 3 weeks gave us the impetus to carry on for the necessary 8 years until we had a record deal. And we said, when we've got the money, we'll go back there for longer. And then we did. We went back there for 3 months, which was, of course, way too long. But in that time, which was inspired lyrically by the act of throwing photographs on the floor so that I was literally looking for something to write, and my granddad was turfing up next to my girlfriend, was turfing up, you know, all these different areas of my life mixed up. And the song is fragmented imagery from my whole life. And it was in the process of writing the words to that song that I remembered my childhood positively for the first time. I'd fallen out with my mum and I'd fallen out with my dad as a young man. And it got into my head that I had a terrible childhood. And actually, during the writing of that song, all this stuff came flooding back and I realised that I was really lucky and I'd had a great childhood. So it was like a weird therapy.
For a while, you sort of blamed your parents' divorce, didn't you, for your song? Well, in a way, you thanked them for that as well because it gave you what you saw as being the therapy of songwriting. Yeah.
And my mum pointed out fairly recently that I was already scuppering my education before they got divorced.
Yeah. Also, I mean, it needs to be pointed out, man, that the house you grew up in, which to me, I think sounds like, I think the idea of 5 older sisters is heaven.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I had one and I hated it. No, love her. But
yeah, no, it was, definitely a vibe. You know, it was like, me and my brother were spoiled, really, I suppose, just by virtue of being lads.
Yeah. But your relationship with your dad obviously creeps in a fair bit into your lyrics. And is it something now with you being a father that you feel yourself trying to make amends for, or do you sometimes see echoes coming down the line?
I appreciate his fatherhood style more and more, you know. When my dad died, I was out in Canada with Rach. Jack was 1. Rach got her first acting job since motherhood. And before we found out my dad was poorly, she took this job in Vancouver, which was 3 months out there. I came to loathe Vancouver, but I suppose I would have hated wherever I was.
Because it's brilliant, by the way.
Right. Okay.
What year was this? What year was this, Guy?
So Jack was 1, so it was 6 years ago. Yeah.
I mean, what's tough about, you know, we did an American tour 2019 and then we went back after the pandemic, and just the North American tour and the difference in homelessness and was so extreme. I mean, the homelessness. And that is what is always shocking in any North American town is you see the extreme wealth and the extreme poverty. So cheek by jowl.
It was one of the biggest problems I had with it was that it purports to be this progressive city, on account of its global positioning. It's got finances coming in from North America and East Asia, and Well,
all of Hong Kong moved there. They called it Van Kong for a while, didn't they? That
right.
was the thing. They're all flooded into there.
Yeah. So, it purported to be one thing, and also offering tax relief to movie makers because of its proximity to California, I suppose. And then, this terrible, terrible homeless problem, which they physically sweep aside homeless people whenever somebody wants to film near the old buildings, which is crazy, isn't it? And the cops are allowed to moonlight as well as security guards. So you've got like uniform cops moving homeless drug addicts to one side so somebody can shoot part of a superhero movie or whatever.
Yeah, the irony.
I found the duplicity, I suppose, is alive and well in all Western culture, but it was just a little bit too stark there for me.
Where were we? We were talking about your dad, and there was something about you moving to Vancouver with Rachel.
Right, so I went home for the old man's funeral.
That's it.
And I started writing him. I started writing to him, strangely, just in my journal, and answering for him. It was a semi-drunken exercise. And in really trying to invest myself in how he would respond to things, I came to realise so much about his life. It's so strange. Like, all the pieces were there, but it was only in the finality of my dad having departed. I think there's something in that. Have you guys both got your parents? Have you lost your parents?
My parents, my mum and dad died with him. His dad died when he was very young, but my mum and dad died within 4 days of each other. I remember going back into the undertakers and saying, "You're not going to believe this." And they said, "No, this happens." And we had a joint funeral for them.
The old dad died of a broken heart.
My mum died. My dad died first. My mum died of the broken heart. Yeah.
That was an official term of death, wasn't it?
Yeah, that is, yeah.
Yeah. And when did your dad die then, Guy?
Mine is my dad died when I just turned 14. Oh. And the last thing he gave me was my first bass guitar and a copy of Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh, bloody hell. Well, he'd have been very proud, my God. Yeah.
He gets to see his dad occasionally on television, don't you?
Yeah.
Don't you, Guy? Because his dad was an actor.
Yeah, he would have known your mother-in-law. Yeah, he was in this show called Randall and Hopkirk Deceased.
Yeah,
he was Randall, the live one.
Of course he was. I can see it now. I can see it now. I always think that's an amazing thing, actually. That by virtue of a Fly on the Wall documentary made in the 70s, I've got interviews with my mum's parents. There was a documentary called Kinds of Loving or Ways of Loving, and he was studying old marriages next to new marriages. So I've got John and Hilda Eccles in Cone talking in detail about their life. And what's stunning about it, looking back on it now, is how poor they were. So it's very, very unusual for sort of working class lad to have that kind of footage, certainly of my age.
Yeah.
Well, then he's got all this history on his mum's side, which he's got access to, all of Diana's films.
Yeah, but I was thinking this is a weird one because but you did this whole thing of interviewing your dad, didn't you? You started that whole project, which was fantastic, by the way, Guy. It was
is that available? Where did it come out? What happened?
It was a radio. Was it Radio 6 or 4? It was 4. It was 4. It was fantastic, interviewing his dad, and then it became this thing this whole thing of sparking conversations with old people, Yeah. But there's an interesting point, Guy, I think, which is that there's all this great stuff I've got of my dad, but it's not my dad. It's not my dad. It's some, it's him being killed by Roger Moore. It's like it's, Yeah. But whereas our children, my son, your son, Gary, your kids, they can relive their lives from practically the moment they were born. Yeah. There are photos, there's videos of everything. And I just wonder what that would do.
Yeah.
Everyone now has the sort of history of a famous person.
Yeah, a really well documented childhood.
Yeah, and I just wonder how that would change your perception of yourself. To see how you actually were when you were 3 years old.
I suppose you haven't got the privilege or the curse of being able to edit your childhood the way you want to see it.
Or see the becoming of yourself.
Well, I think what it does, is it takes the mythology away, which is one of the things we talk about a lot on this programme, about how, the mythology is very hard to retain in pop music now. But you said you scattered those black and white pictures on the floor. Mm. Well, the patina of it being black and white and just frozen in time, that isn't there now. I watch pictures of my kids.
Black and white is a choice. Black and white is a decision.
Yeah, when they were young, as I watched my kids when they were young now, and it looks like it could have been filmed yesterday.
Yeah.
So the mythology of our childhood, which you lean into sometimes, right? I think.
Yeah, I've always said I like to try and find the extraordinary in the ordinary, but it's because I find the most ordinary things like absolutely mind-blowing. For instance, lads, look at these poppies outside my window.
Yeah.
I didn't plant those guys. They planted themselves. And there we are. I've got a stopped firework outside my window. I've got a mum that made us all look at the sunset, made us all look at a tree line, pointed out things as and when they were coming. Mum's still like that. Mum's a very physically and mentally wonderful. She's like 88 and she's just firing on all cylinders. And so she's always pointed out what's great about things.
You remind me of one of your lyrics. You said, wherever you say, and I'm here studying trees or looking.
Oh, yeah, the pondering trees thing. So that actual combination of words has come up twice. And Craig in Elbow has always pushed me to be a better lyricist.
Mate, you're pretty damn good. I love the fact. I love that Craig's going to read
see his
notebooks and go, do better underneath. Send it back.
Well, you have to write with a margin.
Well, to be fair, I started asking the lads what they got off the words after our first album. Nobody passed comment really until the first album was reviewed. And then the lads were saying, is that what that song's about? And I was like, yeah. And I realised that I thought they were being gentlemanly and just letting me get on with it. And in actual fact, they just didn't know what I was writing about. And I realised that perhaps creatively it'd be more interesting for everybody if they did. If they had sort of suggestions or queries, they'd help me bump along, And these days they do feel free to criticise, and have done for many years. But Craig seems to have it down. I think maybe in his role as a producer, he knows how to criticise positively and get something better out of each situation. We don't always agree, but that's fun as well. We've kind of got that.
But what I love about your writing is how you can take the mundane and make it sort of sublime.
Thank you very much.
And it is that makes the ordinary man who listens to your music. All of us are ordinary men, right?
Yeah.
Makes us thrilled by our everyday life.
That's a lovely thing to say. Thank you.
I mean, if I'm going to make some comparisons, I'm thinking of something like a Lowry painting, or just ordinary people, but somehow their setting is magnificent, or folk music that does that. Mm. I mean, some of what you do reminds me of Ewan McCall and
oh wow,
and his work. Yeah. So
I had the most amazing experience. I played with Neil McCall and a bunch of his extended family at the Radio 2 Folk Awards. I sang First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. And Peggy Seeger was on the front row.
Oh.
So I was singing the song written to her by the man whose family I was performing it with. I was like, it was a little bit like an out-of-body experience. And if I'm honest with you, I didn't sing it very well. it could have been much better. But I was just kind of like, this doesn't happen every day. She was really lovely afterwards. I found myself in a huddle with Peggy Seeger, Luden Wainwright, David White Ladder, David
Gray.
David Gray, right. Dave Gray and I have a mutual friend. The Seldom Seen Kid, our biggest record.
Which is still one of my favourite lines ever. It's just as an expression. And I love where it comes from. It's but carry on.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I used to refer to my friend Brian Glancy, who died in 2006 or 7, one or the other. And he was Dave Gray's best man. And they used to do a lot of gigs together. Brian was a singer-songwriter. There's a lovely story that David had his enormous success with White Ladder, and he'd been all over the world. And he came home and he said to Brian, can we just hit the road in one of our cars and just like do little gigs wherever as we go, just a couple of guitars? And Brian was like, of course we can. In fact, Brian used to refer to David as my mate. He'd say, you know, my mate. And we knew he meant that mate. Yeah, he was really proud of his success. So anyway, off they went. And eventually they got to a little B&B in the middle of Scotland. And David's aching, you know, and he's not long off the road. And he's thinking, like, he could do with a massage or something. And he says to the woman behind the counter in this B&B, do you have any facilities? And she said, aye, there's a fruit machine in the bar. Yeah, well, them two had lots of stories. And yeah, so I found myself in this little huddle with those guys. And I have to say, have you met Loudon Wainwright?
No.
He's got like what I imagine it must have been like to stand next to Henry Fonda. He's got this very sort of almost American Gothic. It's like he's made of granite or something. Yeah. And he exudes this natural sort of corn-fed Western confidence. I mean, I like his music. I prefer his son's music, if I'm honest.
Rufus is great, yeah.
Yeah, but like, just to be around, it's like this massive sort of presence. So again, it was one of those situations where you stop and listen.
Absolutely,
you know, given the company.
And of course, there's some sorts of acting things as well, because Ewan was married to Joan Littlewood as well, who I would imagine, you know, knew Diana as well. Do you know? I met Rachel, your wife, years ago.
Oh, really?
When she was working on Still Crazy. Guy and I both worked on Still Crazy.
Yes, I did know.
And that's how I became great mates with Bill Nye.
Oh, right, okay, he's a lovely man. Yeah.
Oh, God, right, of course.
That was her first acting job, yeah.
Yeah. I saw the play that she did with Stephen Mangan, who's also a mate of mine, who's they did Private Lives recently, which was amazing.
It was great, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Rach was nominated for an Evening Standard Award for that, but I was so disappointed that they didn't continue and get another run.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such an amazing... I managed to see it 7 times, which... I'd have a drink with the cast after they'd finished, and it was only on like the 7th time I'd seen it that it crossed my mind that there's a lot of sex in that play. They were sort of rolling around with each other quite a lot. And I said, does it strike you as weird, any of you, that have been to see this play so many times, given that them two are rolling around all over the place? And they all went, no. I promise that's not why I'm coming.
We're both, Guy and I are both Coward fans, probably, you know.
Yeah, massive Coward fan.
Oh,
he's an interesting guy, Noel Coward, because he was actually working class, and the whole thing was an affectation. But in those days, you couldn't have the skill of words and be working class unless you just wanted to write for the music hall, you know. And we're in different times now where you can be proud of your class when you write.
Yeah, it's not something.
But that's what he lashed out. But when that started in the 50s, when you had the angry young men and the whole, he had a complete backlash against them. He hated them. Really? At first, and then he came around to it, even though there's, they're like, come on, man, well, this is what you should be, But yes, it is funny because all those plays, considering they're in the 20s and 30s, and they're all full of threesomes.
I know, just desperately trying to tell a story. Yeah. And just like very, very thinly veiled. Yeah. And I think the thing about their production was because they upped the violence, because it's about an abusive relationship primarily. And they upped the violence, so it wasn't comedy slapstick, it was disturbing at points. And they upped the sexual content, and they basically did what Coward would have wanted, and what he stated that he would have wanted. And it was too much for some of the more conservative theatre critics, And it's a shame, because they threw everything into it. I thought it was brilliant. But Rachel always reads loads in preparation for any role. And I'm fascinated by the whole thing because I've been to the theatre maybe twice when I met Rachel. So it's still a new place for me, you know.
We're a right pair of West End Wendy's, Gary and I.
Yeah.
So.
Is that a phrase?
It is a phrase.
I'll be using it. So yeah, I mean, it's still a very sort of really interesting, exciting sort of new creative environment for me. I feel like
didn't you work on King Kong? Seriously?
Oh God,
a musical.
yeah, totally.
What was that? Because I read a bit of that, and I didn't know. How was that experience? Well,
I'll tell you how it came about. So I worked with Massive Attack in 2004, 5 or 6, something like that.
Heligoland, right?
That's right, yeah. And I get on with Rob Del Naja, 3D as the world knows him. I go on with him, you know. He's got that sort of dark, that dark scowl. Do you know what I mean? What was that guy?
Banksy, isn't that? That's the
Banksy, yeah. Yeah, yo, is he or isn't he? Is he or isn't he Banksy?
Yeah.
There were a few Banksies kicking around their studio when I went there. You know, it's perfectly. It's a good rumour, isn't it? Yeah. It's almost as good as Bob Holness playing on Baker Street.
Yeah.
I think Stuart McConey came up with that one.
Did he? Fantastic.
I worked with them and he was great. And far from the sort of dark character that he looks at in photographs and stuff, he's a really good laugh, Rob. He's a giggly Bristol lad. So when his number comes up on my phone, I'm normally giggling in anticipation of having a giggle, you know. So I picked up the phone, we're both giggling, and then when the giggling subsides, he goes, "Do you all work on King Kong the musical?" I went, "Yeah," and he went, "Nice one," and put the phone down. So, yeah, it was great.
Oh,
yeah.
wait, no. So this is a segue. We want to talk about musicals, talk about a musical that's on at the moment, which was written by one of our fucking favourite guests of all time. And this leads on to what a fucking duet The Fix is in. Richard Hawley.
Yeah,
thank
Come
you.
on. And
we love
talking
Richard.
about this, Standing at the Sky's Edge, of course, is the musical for... listeners who are wondering why I just lost my mind for a second there.
Yeah, it is amazing. It is amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But that song of yours, I also love. I heard you on. It was on. I think on Chris's. But you telling the story. I love the story of that song. The Fix is in. Which, if anyone, I would imagine most people do know.
How did it come about?
Wow.
So we had the same theatrical agent, Jeff Kraft, who's a lovely man. Me and Hawley.
Yeah, you see, you're a lovey through and through, mate. Come on. Drop it. Just drop it, Guy. You're not fooling anyone.
So Jeff, he did Elbow, and Hawley and Frank Black, and we got a load of money from a whiskey company to go to Lynchburg, Tennessee, and do a gig with Muscle Shoals.
Wow,
which was incredible. It was amazing. Spooner Oldham didn't look into it. He didn't really look into it. And actually, his kind of lack of enthusiasm was reflected in his performances. It sounded like he was chasing his glass eye around the keyboard, if I'm completely honest, lads. But we were to do 2 of our own songs and a classic cover each. And I met Hawley in the airport, and his first words to me were, "Do you play Battleships?" And I was like, "What? The MB Games, Battleships?" Yeah. I was like, I have. And he opens his bag and he's got MB Battleships and a 6-pack of Guinness in his plastic bag. So we're on the plane over to America.
He's trying to psych you out. That was an amazing line.
We were just we were just in bits. We were just laughing our heads off. And we were sat a few rows apart. And every now and again he'll go, "C4," like that. and I'd be like, "Miss." He'd be like, "Achtung, England of Pig Dog." Like this is it. And this is going on the plane until eventually the woman sat next to him said, "Would you like me to swap with your friends so you can sit?" So Guinness and Battleships, and Yeah, on the way home, we just loved each other.
There must be. I can't imagine you haven't written a song called Guinness and Battleships.
Yeah.
And the B-side. Yeah. Actually, we have got another one planned called Dig, which is about two old guys giving up their allotments. We haven't finished Riley yet, but
Bernard Cribbins isn't involved.
One of the lines was, it's terrible. Very little said, but a lot meant.
Dear.
Terrible. So so on the way back home on the plane, again on the wrong side of a few Guinness, we were singing War Pigs by Black Sabbath, but making up our own lyrics. And eventually it got to, it was tenuous rhymes. We were playing tenuous rhymes. Eventually it came to, that dinosaur is well Jurassic. Is that Magnum Vanilla or is it classic? I just rolled it in the aisles. And then I said, we should actually do a
fucking Ivor Novello winner. Can you believe it? Unbelievable.
Terrible. But every now and again on Hawley will send me a picture of a Magnum. So I was like, right, if we're going to do a duet, if it's sincere, it's got to be fun. It's got to involve insults. And we were citing Fairy Tale in New York, which is a piece of genius songwriting, isn't it? And
Ewan's daughter.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, the mad thing about that one is I was in New York for a while before I met my wife. And I was there over the Christmas and I was doing my radio program. And I decided to go and find the NYPD choir. And there's never been one. It was a construct. It was a construct for the sake of songwriting. Wow. Isn't that amazing? That's like the emotional peak of the song. That's the image in your head.
Yeah.
Of like
fiction.
Yeah, brilliant. Just genius. Evil genius, really.
Yeah. But that's the sort of thing. It's like where you go and you find out that there is now an NYPD choir.
Yes. Because of the song. Yeah. Almost certainly, yeah. So the fix is about a horse race that we've both, we've fixed and we're looking forward to the winnings and we're planning on how we're going to spend our ill-gottens. The Donahue sisters will meet us in France. In Penguins and Pearls, we'll drink and we'll dance till the end of our days because it ain't left a chance that we'll win because the fix is in. I had so much fun doing it. Hawley's old man, talking of dead dads, Hawley's old man was on his way out at the time, and he sent me a picture of his dad recently, actually. It's a lovely picture with Rich on his knee, and he was definitely where it all came from for Rich. He was in the local band. He was a great guitarist.
Oh, yeah, his dad's amazing. Rich has been on the show.
His family story is unbelievable.
Incredible.
Yeah. So, unknown to me, he was by his father's bedside, and I, for the first time in my life, went to a betting shop to get some terminology for this song, because I had no idea what I was talking about. This lovely girl behind the counter was doing her nails very elaborately. I sort of said, hey, can you imagine it? Hello, I'm a songwriter. She was like, right. Right.
Have you got any song titles running today I can bet on?
I was like, I don't know anything about horse racing and I'm writing a song about putting a bet on. Could I ask you some questions? And all the terms I used in the song, and it was brilliant. She got into it by the end and she was like volunteering stuff. But in the middle, I took a picture of me stood in front of the form, as I now know it's called, with a confused look on my face, and sent it to Hawley. And unknown to me, his father was literally on his last legs, and it really cheered him up to see this thing.
Bless.
And then he came over, and it was great. It was like having him unwrap a present, because when he was reading the lyrics, he was absolutely howling, laughing. And he insisted that we sing it old style, 2 mics in a room. He insisted that we smoke in the studio, which we hadn't done for years. And when he got to there's one line in the song that says, "Our pigeons have finally landed." And he put a little chuckle on every time he did it, like some of the more convoluted Dean Martin stuff. We'll have a little chuckle in the same place. Yeah. And he did it every single time, and every single time I corpsed. I couldn't carry on singing after his pigeons.
Did your jauntily angled trilby fall off?
What I love about the record is this combination, because you have this amazing tenor, you know, and he's got this baritone that we all love. You're very different singers. I mean, he sings in a quite an American accent, you know. He has this 50s sound, and you've always embraced your local accent. But let me just because a connection's just popping into my head now. Because obviously the only other betting song that I know is "I Got the Horse Right Here, His Name is Paul Revere," which is Guys and Dolls. Right?
Oh, right. Which is
nicely, and two other guys, and they're all singing about what horses to bet on in the race. And that, of course, Guys and Dolls is based on Damien Runyon's book.
Which is
where
the Seldom Seen Kid came from.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
this isn't the podcast we do.
That's brilliant, though.
We don't do Join the Dots. But
maybe it should be. Maybe it should be. Maybe this is on you. But no, because but there's a punchline, isn't there, to you writing the lyrics, which we haven't got to yet.
What? I mean, in terms of...
that you basically ended up writing so many verses.
Oh, yeah, that he was
that you didn't. That the punchline that they don't put the bet on isn't in it.
That's right. It was
the whole point of. It's like if you were making a movie.
Yeah.
You know, if it was like an Ocean's 11 or something, it's like.
That's because he couldn't sing anymore after Hawley had sung "The Pigeons Had Finally Landed."
Yeah, that's right. It was supposed to.
But it's brilliant. It's like the whole gag isn't in it.
It was fantastic. It was supposed to descend into insults, like Fairy Tale in New York.
Right.
And yeah, we didn't get that far. So it just ends up being about two ne'er-do-wells smugly talking about what they're going to do with the winnings. And obviously, like, Hawley gets his guitar out in the studio, and he just he nailed that solo in like a couple of passes. And then it was his idea to do the kind of hag-like, he kept calling them the hags, the kind of backing vocals. He's
fabulous.
It's like Ghost Town. It's going to sound like Ghost Town. Like screaming hags. And of course, he wanted to get to the pub. So the whole thing was recorded fairly quickly and teed up a lifelong friendship with Rich. In fact, not just to shoe in our Mercury win, but I don't mind if I do. When we won the Mercury for that album, the following day, me and Mark got the train back to London, and we were just listening to the hundreds of answer machine messages we had. I guess these days it would be
back when people still left messages.
Exactly, yeah. And my favourite one was the sound of Hawley's kids going bananas, and over the top he says, "There's chocolate Haagen-Dazs all over the ceiling, you fuckers."
His pigeons had finally landed. Do you know, I think I told Guy, I'm doing a solo record at the moment, but Hawley rang me about 4 months ago, and I did it out of the blue. Like, he's never rung me, right? I mean, we've had a few texts, you know, and then he just said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to write a song, and I'm really stuck." And he calmed me down over the phone. I told you this guy, haven't I?
No, you haven't. No.
He goes, "Right, go to your piano," you know. And he took me to my piano. He said, "Close your eyes, you know, put your hands out, put them on the keys." And he was getting me to calm down and get my head into the right space. And then he said, "Right, I'm going to go now, and you're going to write a fucking brilliant song."
Oh.
I did write a song immediately after that, funnily enough. There's so much to talk to you about, Guy. You know, and we seem to have just digressed into 100 stories, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Because the one time we've come across each other, Guy, is it was I don't know if you remember doing Later with Jules Holland back in 2008. And you had your fucking big guns. It was like you were doing One Day Like This and Grounds for Divorce.
Ugh. Yeah.
And David Gilmour was on.
Yeah.
And I was playing with him, and it was very, very poignant for us because we were there because Rick Wright had just died. And there was just a real mutual respect thing going on either side of the studio.
I remember it.
Yeah, because
Phil was playing with David as well.
That's right. Phil Manzanera was with us, and there was a real thing from us of like, these guys, man, you know. And
well,
I mean,
of course,
really, really nice.
We were just in awe, you know, just sort of like. I mean, that's the best thing about that program. You get to see your heroes play, and you get to
I managed to get them to send a car to get my 6-year-old boy down to meet Katy Perry, and she was lovely to him.
Yeah, that's right. She was on as well. Yeah. She was dead sweet, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Now then, was Shaggy on that episode as well?
Oh no, I don't know. Was the
Radar's
Streets on?
Benny Hill. Well, he is, isn't he? Yeah. Wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Talking about members of Pink Floyd. I mean, it is the more you. When I started listening to your stuff recently again, you know, knowing you were coming in and hearing so much of, in a way, what I grew up with loving. You know, I'm going to use that word, Guy, prog, and hearing Peter's kind of sensibility, Gabriel. You know, and it seems like, in a way, you took, tell you where my country lies, says the uniform to his true love's eyes. And you took that line and you made it a career, almost. Yes. There's a sense of so much of that British folk and mystery that's in Peter's work in those early.
Well, there's an older sister,
Supper's
wasn't
Ready,
who specifically says there was an older sister who was your Genesis guide, wasn't there?
Our Becky, who's also the Beckipedia on my Six Music programme.
Yeah.
I didn't tell anybody that she was my sister for the first 10 years of broadcasting because it quite rightly would have been spanked for nepotism. But she has led me to so much of the music that I love, you know. And it's like, well, I mean, I heard Spandau through one of my sisters. That would have been our Sam, you know. And I heard like Pink Floyd through Becky, Genesis and Yes all through Becky. Whereas Motown and Soul would have been our Gina, Country through Louise. It's like all these, one high five sisters. It's like you just end up agog, you know, listening for this stuff.
Wow.
And in terms of Peter Gabriel, like, I definitely sort of learned to sing as a young teenager, listening to Genesis and to listening to So in particular.
Right.
Because there's loads of room for harmony on that record. He's pared it down. And so there are harmonies that are not there that were a good exercise from somebody who's not trained in any way to sing. And in terms of like that particular image, can you tell me where my country lies? I hear in his stuff, even though he's got quite a different background from me, he's kind of rural Salisbury. Peter's dad was an inventor. He was like, and obviously he was a public school boy, but with very, very different backgrounds. We arrived at the peculiarness of Englishness lyrically, and sort of like a little bit of a different lens. And I can only say this looking back, I didn't realise what I was doing lyrically in the first place. It was just, I knew where I lived and I knew what my focus was. And I suppose really, still the echoes of the war moving through even the most mundane imagery in the north of England, as well as there in Salisbury where he was.
Yeah. Just talk about how you put songs together with Elbow, because I'm fascinated with whether or not you bring entire lyrics in. I know you spoke about lyrics being adjusted later on. There's certainly, you know, mad polyrhythms that go on that somehow you retain a very emotional scansion over. You almost ignore, and I think that's what I think makes Elbow's music so important. Is you've got this kind of polyrhythmic stuff going on, which is almost there's an aggressiveness about that and a disjointedness, an abstract quality about that. But over the top, you're delivering sometimes a very sweet, elongated, you know, melody that sits beautifully in its opposite.
Thank you. It's more often than not these days. It'll be a drum beat that I've asked for from Alex. Alex Reeves' Elbow's drummer these days is just an amazing.
I saw
musician. He's now writing, isn't it? It's a few years and he's now in properly.
He is. He's in.
Yeah.
Not unlike Lee.
But it's funny.
Funnily enough, he doesn't play unlike Lee Harris from Talk Talk. I think,
yeah.
You know.
Which, I mean...
Well, there's an interesting... sorry to interrupt, but it's just, Gary, you've really reminded me of something, because I know you said that thing of when you asked about how you write, and I know, and I've read you say this thing of getting your drummer to give you beats to write to. Yeah. And that was a Peter Gabriel thing, that he would, like the third album was him writing to drum machine patterns.
Right,
so it's quite an interesting, unique thing. So.
Yeah, well, I think it's just somewhere to start. And I mean, occasionally I'll write something and it might not be right, and I'll save an image for later on down the line for another song. But my preferred way of working with Elbow, because again, if I'm writing for a solo project or for something else or with someone else, there's no rules, and I might start with a phrase. In fact, I was helping. People have started sending me their musicians when they're a bit stuck, which is really flattering. It's not something that I've managed to monetize yet, but I get sent songwriters who need a little bit of confidence. Normally, is all it is. And more than once, it's been somebody who's been signed after performing a couple of covers online when really young. Then they've had a retainer thrown at them, and then suddenly, first album time, they're seized up. I was like, let's just write a song that no one else is ever going to hear. Let's just unplug the channels and get going. And he said, right. So I said, give us a chord, any chord. He hit one. And I said, right, opening live, let's just borrow somebody else's and change it a bit. And we ended up writing, because we're both fans of Joni Mitchell, we ended up writing, "The wind is in from Milton Keynes. Fucked if I know what that means."
Wow. John Betjeman would have loved that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, up his alley, yeah. And then we were off. But with Elbow, generally speaking, it'll be something that Mark's written over a drum beat of ours, something that Craig's written over a drum beat of ours. Less frequently, only because I think Pete finds it harder to give something across to other people because he writes very personally, but very occasionally it'll be something from Pete. And then sometimes, although less these days, I'll write something over a drum beat, like something musical, and then I've got a bit of a backdrop. But I've realised in a truly collaborative outfit, if people haven't actually been involved in something, they don't carry the can for it, they don't support it, the chances of it making a record are a little lessened. So I've decided to sit back and wait for the music to come to me. And then I'll fire whatever comes into my mind at it. And sometimes I'll grab a theme, love the theme, run with it too far, and it'll be something that works, but it'll be too divorced from the music for it to make any coherent sense. Sometimes I'll get all the way down the line with an idea, get it exactly the way I want to realise that it's just not a good song. You know, there's one, I've told this story before, so forgive me if you've heard it, but
Stop me.
By the way, at this point, every member of Elbow would in chorus go, heard it. In fact, my wife does it as well these days. So there's a song on, I can't remember which record, 2 or 3 albums ago, called On the Road, which is a road in South London. And it's me singing to my son about being on the bus with him. And there's a lovely story attached to that, which I'll tell you in a bit. But before it was On the Road, it was this great big epic sort of Matt Mossy fragmented piece of music, this great bit of programming that Craig had done. Really cinematic and atmospheric. And I'd been to India with my wife, having never been there before. And when we got to Udaipur in Rajasthan, she booked us into this hotel. There was no one else staying in the hotel. One of those strange things that happens in India. And it was in front of this lake. And because I like my bird life, every water bird you can imagine was on this lake. And it was surrounded by mountains. And then there was this really thin old guy rowing an inner tube from a tractor. He was sitting on it. And he was rowing using ping pong bats. And he was setting an enormous net. And he would have it in his teeth. And he would just be very slowly hunting himself. Yeah, basically. And the birds, because of the heat, would settle in the shadow of one of the mountains. So you'd have these congregations in these vast triangles across the water. And then at the end of the day, this guy would get his keep in, this big net. They'd throw the small ones back, him and this young lad. And when I got home, I heard this piece of music that Craig had written. And I thought, I know he's doing that now because he does that every day. And I set about writing it up. I know right now in Udaipur, that man as thin as mist sets a giant net at an ancient pace. A strange Subutio deity, ping-pong paddle powered. And then he went on like this. And a long story short, it came all the way around. And at the end, until his son may one day become the fisherman of Udaipur. And I was really happy. I got all the imagery in there. He's scanned. The melodies worked. It was beautiful. And then I very happy to take it to Manchester and play it to the boys. And as it was coming out of the speakers, I realised that I'd written a song that just said, I've been to India.
And then I just chundered everywhere.
So like, you know what? Do you know what? I'll do something different with this.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, I'm sure it'll appear somewhere at some stage, but in your collected works.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I feel about your history is because you had such a long, you made success in your 30s.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
You had that such a long time where you didn't get signed, and then when you did get signed, I mean, it was really not until your 4th album.
Yeah.
But unlike most of us sods, you don't have any of your juvenilia properly exposed. You know, that you had a sense of maturity when you arrived. And I think, given the sort of way we live in pop music now, and, you know, even when I was playing in making records back in the early 80s, it was still a young person's thing.
Yeah.
That it's not now, and that you arriving on the scene as mature guys gave people in their 30s and 40s a new band to discover, that was talking their language. I mean, that's a rare thing, isn't it?
It really is. And well, not as rare now. I think it's like...
I'll say it's because of coming where you do. At the start, we're talking about the start of the 21st century. The thing is, for us, in our day, we'd never seen old people do this. People just turned... Mick Jagger was 30. Which was the end of the world. So there was no idea that you could do this in your 30s or 40s, or that there was no future for it.
Yeah.
But I guess you came into a world where there already were middle-aged people, so you could see a point to it.
I suppose, and rock and roll...
Thank God.
And rock and roll's not that old, is it? So we didn't know it could happen because there'd only been a couple of generations, really.
But that's what I mean, at least that, yeah.
I remember realising that Sgt. Pepper's, when the Stone Roses' first album came out, which of course was a massive one for us, I remember it being the same amount of time again. My friend Urshad, who was part...
20 years.
Yeah, who was our crew. He was part of our crew. He was like, hey, the Roses' first album's as old as Sgt. Pepper's or something. And he was like, because he wasn't our generation, because it happened before us, it was like, Jesus... Well, I'm suddenly out. Yeah, I mean, it does fly, doesn't it? It's extraordinary. I love the fact that we can now listen to really amazing music that's 100 years old. That recording now takes us back a century. Isn't lost on me. I'm quite obsessed with it, which is why I ended up recording my dad, because I had something in my pocket that could. It was a mini Discman when I started recording him, and then I realised around the time he was dying that we all now have a recording device in our pocket, which is why it was lovely to make that programme. And the other thing was I pulled strings at the BBC, and when that documentary, my sister produced it, and it went out on my dad's birthday, the first birthday after he died. So for the rest of my family, the first time they heard his voice was on his birthday.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I think what I was trying to sort of say earlier was that you started, if you go on stage now and you play your greatest hits, you're not going back into your teens so much, You're not playing that embarrassing early stuff that you have to play. The sense you worked out who you were as a band over those years, because it took so. Why was it fucking taking so long?
Well, we were terrible. We were really bad. And
you couldn't have thought that, or you would have stopped.
Well, no, we didn't. We thought we were great. We were surrounded. Luckily, we were surrounded by people who encouraged us. I mean, not everybody. By the time we changed the name of the band to Elbow from Mr. Soft,
Cockney Rebel reference, that wasn't it?
Yeah, we can't. We couldn't fill a room. There was, scant few of our friends and family who still wanted to come and see us play. And then the following year, we had full rooms again. And it was something to do with stopping trying to get signed. It was like, when we were trying to make music to get us a record deal, it wasn't resonating with people. It wasn't coming across as genuine. And it was when we decided to make an EP, it was, for ourselves. It was a last dash. So so we've got something to hold and listen to that we made. Let's make an EP we're really proud of and put it out. And that's what led to us getting our first record deal. Yeah.
Was there a thing about, because there seemed up until Oasis, there seemed to be youth culture and pop culture going hand in hand. And it would start with kids on the street, go to a club and end up with a band. Yeah. And that kind of felt like that sort of stopped a little bit at Britpop. There wasn't a wave of this is what's happening now. Yeah. I mean, I suppose there was the Coldplay and the Snow Patrol thing. Was it tricky? Did you have a feeling that you didn't have anything to hook onto?
Well, yeah. I mean, and we were wildly experimenting with recording as well as with writing. From day one, we had a 4-track. And Craig and I, originally, it was the two of us that were really into the recording and messing with recording and layering and being creative in that way. And that was alongside writing this stuff that would make our mates dance, elongated jams and, stuff with like sort of Santana-influenced beats and Sly Stone-influenced stuff, but not a good version.
Oh yeah, no. On your Desert Island discs, you had a particular. It was "Thank You for Talking to Me, Africa" or whatever. A really particular mix of Sly Stone, which is amazing, and I love that. That was a template for you.
Oh, huge! Yeah, I think it coincided with us finding weed, and it was like we'd love funk and we'd love the up tempo energy of funk, and I guess it had been gone long enough for it to be a real fertile exploration area musically for us. So together we got into funk, and all roads lead to Sly. And then the more and more language stuff was what appealed as our heart rate slowed.
And I suppose Radiohead and Talk Talk were a big influence on what you would.
Huge. And I guess it's through prog rock, through experimentation, through the cinema of those groups. I mean, that's what I love about Genesis and what I love about Yes. It's not the notes per second stuff. It's the cinematic passages. Yeah. It's the drama. It's and I love John Anderson's voice, and it really properly divides people, doesn't it? But to me, I just find it.
I grew up loving it. I grew living in my little working class house, I put on Relay or Close to the Edge and Topographic Oceans. I was, as you say, it was a cinematic transportation away from the mundane.
Yeah. And when I met Mark, so I was 16 when Mark, we were at the same sixth form college, he very flatteringly, after a few weeks of writing songs in my mum's kitchen, he was working in a kitchen at like a pub, and he said, I get my wages tomorrow. Would you take me to town and buy me a record collection? Which that was like,
that's that amazing. Was a real. You were a curator even then.
Yeah, well, it was a gesture of friendship as well, because he loved DC and he loved U2 and he had his favourites, but he wanted to explore a bit more. And I took you to the Corn Exchange in Manchester, where you could buy second-hand vinyl for £2 because nobody saw its value anymore. Yeah. And I remember getting him to buy 2 John Martin records, Bless the Weather and Solid Air, Joni Mitchell's Blue, Supertramps, Breakfast in America and Crime of the Century, Yes, Close to the Edge, the Yes album. And I remember for like 30 quid, he came back with a big stack of stuff. And we still bond over that stuff. We still love that music.
But that's one thing I would say about Elbow is that you still have that. When on every record of yours, you're not, like an Oasis or anything. There's no fixed sonic palette. It's not like, that'll be Elbow. It's like, it's like until you start singing, it's not necessarily Elbow, and that's a compliment to the musicians in the band.
Well, absolutely. And it's what I love about doing it with them, because they don't present me with the same thing twice.
Yeah, it's so brilliant, that story, because that's how the Elbow film starts, isn't it? With you going to get his record collection together.
We've long talked about Elbow the musical, and we've decided it starts with Mark in the middle of the stage. Pots and pans are flying in a busy kitchen. The atmosphere, everything freezes. My name is Mark. I'm a part-time chef. Follow me on a dream. And see you later, Hawley. Hang
on, there's one thing I want to bring up, Gary, which is there's that great, in Grounds for Divorce, right? There's that fantastic line, there's a hole in my neighbourhood down which
such a great line.
But what's fantastic is what that relates, because you can interpret that, and there's a million ways one can see that as a great piece of poetry. But the fact that it specifically relates to this place, the Temple of Convenience, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is a bar which is in a converted gents.
That's right.
Which I love that. And when I remember coming across that, and I've seen you interviewed in it, but did you know that back in the 60s there was that Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, when they had their sketch show, not only but also, they had a sketch which was about someone setting up a club in a gentleman's club in a gentleman's convenience. And they did it as a sketch, and they had a fully liveried doorman who was John Lennon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look it up. I'll look at it being done. Do you know what? Just to bring us full circle, my dad's cremation, he came into Louis Armstrong's When the Saints, and he went out to Goodbye, Goodbye, we're leaving you to the
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you so much for coming on, Guy.
It's a pleasure. Really lovely.
Man, this is really has been, yeah.
We'll have to get you back again.
It's much like what Hawley said. I think us three should go for a pint.
Yeah. I think so too. Let's do that at the first available opportunity.
Yeah.
It's a great podcast, lads. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel honoured. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we get your details off of our producer, and we'll stay in touch?
Yeah, please.
Totally. Absolutely. Let's have a pint. I'd love that.
He's my new best friend.
No, he's mine.
Who are you?
He's mine. What do you mean? You've ignored me. You've dumped me for him, have you? Guy and Guy.
It's got a ring to it.
Well, you hope there will be.
Oh man, God, you can see why he's, he's a national treasure.
Totally
really,
national treasure, but such a nice man, and so just a genius at the same time. There's normally, when people are that good with words, there can be an artfulness about them when you meet them, and there's none of that with Guy, is there? He's very humble and down to earth. I think that's why people love him so much.
A slight similarity to not just sort of songwriters, but to Simon Armitage. So there's that same.
Yeah, I was thinking about Simon's band.
Yeah.
That they do a similar thing, although Simon obviously doesn't sing as much. But God, I so want the book of his lyrics to sit and read.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that's out there somewhere, or will come. Thank you to our producer Ben Jones for Gimme Sugar, and thank you for you guys for listening. We love you. Talking about us and getting involved in the social media, don't we, Guy? We do look for that.
We do love it. Without you, what else?
So I think we're on all the normal social media channels, and just leave messages or ideas or thoughts, or do what Johnny Marr does and correct us.
We can take it.
Until then, it's good night from me,
and it's good night from them.
Rockonteurs is produced by Gimme Sugar Productions for Warner Music Group UK.